And the most important thing we can do as husbands, fathers, and leaders in the time of grief when we're going through it is communicate.
Positive energy and good vibrations from me to you. You have now tuned in to Imperfect Fathers podcast.
Peace, family. What's the word? Positive energy and vibrations to you. Welcome to another dope episode of the Imperfect Fathers podcast, a platform that is committed and dedicated to helping men be better men, husbands, fathers, and leaders with class, style, and confidence. I am your host, RJD, the Imperfect Gentleman and Men's Confidence Development Coach. And in this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to have the hard discussion about grief and grieving as men, fathers, and husbands. But you guys know around this podcast, there's something that we must take care of first before we dive into this episode. And one of those things is talking to the Father upstairs. So with that being said, let's do just that. Father, we thank you for another opportunity to come before you to say thank you. But we understand right now that there was someone who did not wake up this morning. So right now, if we have oxygen in our lungs, we are breathing with blood flowing through our veins. Right now, we say thank you, God, because the life itself is the gift, and you are the giver of that gift. So we want to say thank you, and we appreciate you right now in the majesty of the Most High. So right now, God, before we go any further, I want to ask you right now that I may decrease so you can increase in this moment, in this time right now, that I may say something to help someone be a better version of themselves, help them get through a tough time in their life. In the majesty of the Most High, Christ, we pray. Amen. All right. So this week, guys, we're going to have a good one, and I mean good one. We're going to jump right into it because this week, the content that I have to get to at the end of the podcast, it is very, very important. And I think it's very, very vital to all of us men in each stage of our life. Right now, you guys know there's something we have to take care of called the watch and respond. Let's get to it. This week in the watch and respond, I am going to show this video because I do believe that there's some things that we can take from this video. With that being said, let me pull the video up. All right, here we go. This week's watch and respond.
Just talk to me. I'm sorry. Do you try to get your kid out the door?
It's getting real.
I mean, have you ever had a kid on the plane for 3 hours? What would you do? What would you do?
If that was my kid, he would be behaving.
He's behaving.
Hey, buddy, is there any way you can stop maybe kicking the seat?
Do not talk to my son.
Oh.
Don't talk to my son.
Man,
Talk to me like your husband did. Talk to me.
have you considered reading a motherhood book?
I see. Motherhood.
I was just
Motherhood.
Yeah, you're overstepping your boundaries.
Overstepping my
Yeah, you are, and you really starting to piss me
You're
off.
overstepping my boundaries by letting your kid.
No, my kid is just fine. My kid is fine. Turn around. No, you can turn
lower
around.
your voice a little bit.
No, I don't need to lower
I
anything.
was asking you nicely,
You-
and I was asking your
No,
son
but
nicely.
both of
You can
y'all.
stop kicking the-
Both of y'all together.
All right. So I want to start this off by saying God only knows who to put in certain situations and who not to, because Lord have mercy right now. Yo, first and foremost, the mother in that situation was completely wrong. Completely. She didn't have not 1 ounce of being right in this entire situation at all. And I'm ready for all the smoke, right? I am ready for all of the smoke. Each and every person that's going to come about and say, "Oh, you know what, RJ? She has 2 children on the plane with her. She's dealing with a lot." That's what I say to that. What? Nah, you got me messed up. First of all, what the mother did, and this is what I can't stand about parents, is that you double down on your children's bad behavior. This child, if you watch the video again, you can look in this child's eyes, and he's probably about, I would say, I wouldn't give him no more than 4 or 5, anywhere between 3 and 5. And my son currently is 5 years old. He'll be 6 this year in November. Shout out to Joe. But even in that moment, if you watch that child, he knows right from wrong. That child is not lacking common sense. He knows what he's doing is wrong. But the problem is he's not being chastised for his issue, for the problem. He's not being disciplined in that moment. Instead of taking the time to say, "You know what, little man, stop putting your foot on this people's chair." She said he's not doing nothing. That baffles me, y'all. How is it possible that he's not doing nothing when these people are clearly stating, and you can see that he's kicking this man's chair on repeat. And he's not just kicking it like before the conversation, before the altercation. He's kicking it throughout the altercation, meaning he knows exactly what he's doing. And for the mother not to stop him from doing that and then to go defend him, oh my God. Yo, listen, this behavior this mother just okayed and showed is literally the behavior that this young boy is going to go through with life, doing the same behavior. As the older he's going to get, the more backlash he's going to receive for the behavior she's showing, and he's not going to understand. Well, my mother okayed it. What do you mean? I'm not wrong. My mom said, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. And then you have one of these little boys that turn to be one of these men that can't be told no, that don't understand that there are some things in life that you just cannot do. He's going to be one of the men that throws a tantrum the moment he doesn't get his way. This is the behavior that she's setting up to lead. Because the truth of the matter is, if I was in a situation as that man that was sitting there in that chair, I would have definitely said, hey, listen, get your child before there's a problem on this airplane. That's it. I'm not going back and forth with you, man. I'm not doing that. And then in a certain part of the video, she then states when the lady begins to talk directly to the young man, because for some unknown reason, she just wouldn't. She nicely said, hey, little fella, could you possibly stop kicking the chair in front of you? The boy just looked away from her, and the mother says, don't talk to my child. Now, listen, I get it. There is a certain way you talk to children, a certain way you don't talk to children. But this woman did not come at your child wrong. She came at your child nicer than I would have. And I'm not trying to make this a black or white thing. I'm not. I'm definitely not. By no means. Everybody knows me, knows that that's not my spiel. But I'm going to keep it real with you. I truly feel that if that was a black man and a black couple in front of her, number one, that little boy probably wouldn't have been too prone to kick that chair. Number two, the moms would have never acted in such way. She'd have fell back a little bit. She would have then said to herself, you know what, stop kicking this chair. Now, why do I say that? Because a lot more times in that situation, we're more aggressive. I'm going to be real with you. I'm just more aggressive, period. I would have told that little man, yo, little man, stop kicking my chair, period. Stop putting your foot on my chair, little man. I would have talked directly to him as an older adult male to a young man. I would have not sugarcoated anything. Listen, stop kicking my chair. I don't appreciate it. Stop. Now, the mom wouldn't like that. All right, cool, understandable. But the truth of the matter is, you have not done your job. Now, the gentleman was nice. He said, have you ever considered reading a mothering book? Yeah, that was pretty funny. I must say, I gotta give it to him, because that was the most underhanded shot to the kidneys in the world, right? Like, that was one of those underhand, subtle jabs, right? Like, whole lot, real subtle. Have you ever thought about reading a motherhood book? Hey, you know what? I guess I need to learn to be able to speak in that way and not be so aggressive. I guess I think that's my next level of growth. But I'm just putting this out there. That mother was completely wrong. She should have told her young man, listen, stop kicking that chair, or you're going to have to deal with me, period. She has to have that kind of reign over her children, because if you don't, you're setting this young man up for failure in more ways than one. I just wanted to put that out there, and I wanted to say that this week. If you have any kind of rebuttals, if you have any kind of response that you want to have to my response to this video, you shoot it down in the comments. Or as a matter of fact, reach out to me on Instagram. I have no problem with responding to your DMs as long as they're respectful, because I don't believe in matching energy. I believe in subseeding it. I believe in going past and above and beyond energy, right? So if you come at me sideways, I'm not going to match that energy. I'm going to go above and beyond it. So that's a fair warning. I ask everyone, if you're going to come to me, please come respectful, because I will always come at you respectful. And I always ask people to do the same. We all are adults. We all have our own views and opinions. So please, if you are going to come in and rebuttal my watch and respond, or come and combat anything that I say on this podcast, please do it respectfully, because I will always address you respectfully. This week, let's talk basketball. As much as I don't want to talk basketball right now, because it is the summer, end of the summertime, and we've been in the middle of the World Basketball Championships, FIBA. And our United States, our US of A players have not lived up to the hype this year. I'm not going to sit here and blame it all on our guys, simply because the world as a whole has caught up. It's not just that we're over here dominating in the sport of basketball and like we've done all these years. Everywhere else has evolved. And one thing I've recognized and I've seen that most of our big name stars now, believe it or not, are foreigners, right? They're not from this land. They're from different lands, and they're coming over here and they're joining the NBA, and they're phenomenal individuals. Everyone from Luca, a couple guys escape me right now, Schroeder, Shea, all these guys that are phenomenal talents. They come from different places. They come from different countries. It was a big thing this year. It was a big comment that was made by one of the athletes that was saying that if the NBA players are saying that they're the world champions, how is that possible? Because they haven't beat the world. They've only beat teams in the United States. That's a very, very valid point to a certain point. He has a very valid point saying that the NBA players, when they win the championship, they can't really say that they're winning the world championship because it's not the world. They've only beat the teams that are in the country, the USA, the country. In the same regards for that statement, you have to be careful because every one of the major stars in all these countries around the world are aiming to get to the NBA in the US. In a sense, the NBA is literally the best talent in the world. There are so many other players across the world that are just dying and killing themselves to get in the NBA. So I get what the young man was saying by saying that NBA players that win the NBA championship really shouldn't call themselves world champions. But at the same time, young fella, I got to give you a little pushback because even yourself, you would love a contract in the NBA. There isn't one young man that plays basketball on any part of the world that would not want to come and get a contract in the NBA. The truth is, your best players of every country is either already in the NBA or working his behind off to get to the NBA. The NBA is the cream of the crop. It is the best league on earth. There isn't another basketball league that can compete with the NBA. There isn't talent outside of the NBA on a collective whole that can really compete with the NBA on a skill level. So I want to give a special shout out to the guys who won it this year. And I believe it was Germany. And shout out to Dennis Schroeder. I want to give him a special shout out. Shout out to him because it was a lot of talk this year in the last year or so about him not really being a NBA talent, right? It was a lot of talk about him not proving himself and people saying that he's not earned his keeps and all these things. And it was looking like he might have been out of the league in about a year or so. But he has put not only the NBA on notice, but the world after his performance this year in FIBA. So I want to special shout out to him and all the rest of the other individuals out there who took this opportunity moment to really put themselves on the map, right? Like they took this time of their lives and said, you know what, all the work and all the hustle that I've put in over these years, I am going to let it finally come to life right now in this moment and really propel myself to get to where I want to go. So I want to give everyone who competed and showed forth to be a phenomenal talent in this time of their career, because I know for a fact there are a lot of GMs, a lot of agents, a lot of scouts on notice about a lot of different men from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. So shout out to every one of you guys, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the memories. Thank you for the dope basketball that you guys have put on this summer. And shout out to those champions over there over in Germany. My man, Dennis Schroeder. Shout out to you, my guy. Do me a favor, y'all. Hit that like button, throw a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button. Dig what I'm saying? None of it costs you any money, but all of it helps me tremendously. I want to say that one more time. Nothing of which I just said costs you anything other than a few seconds, but it benefits this channel and it helps other men know about this channel, which benefits them greatly. We have great conversations on this podcast that is designed to help men, husbands, and fathers. So the more you help me share it out there, the more husbands, fathers, and men that I can help impact and give off this information and this knowledge that I've taken time to put together to give forth and pour from my heart and my experiences. So like I said before, it would help me and this page tremendously if you would just like, comment, and subscribe to this page. I truly, truly appreciate you and thank you in advance for it. Let's jump into the main topic this week. This week's topic is a tough one because grief and grieving is something that we all must deal with. At certain points, all of us, I don't care who you are, what age you are, what level you are, you're going to have to deal with grief and grieving. You're going to have to deal with it. It's a part of life that you cannot escape. You just cannot get away from it. Now, let's talk about what is grief. What is grief? Grief is a deep sorrow, especially caused by a death or a loss. That's a definition of grief. And what is grieving? Grieving is the process of adjusting emotionally and in life after loss. It can also mean to feel or express intense grief or feel sorrow or distress caused by the loss of a person, place, or thing. And in parentheses, regret. Understanding that grief is something that we all have to deal with, and grieving is the process of grief. There's a process to it. We all understand that processes take time. When we deal with things, especially dealing with a process, there are things that we have to do in a specific order in order to get the outcome we desire, right? There's a reason why when you bake a cake, they give you directions, and then they give you a specific set of directions that you have to follow in step-by-step order. You can have all the correct ingredients and just put it in a pot and in a pan, put it in the oven, take it out and stir it up. You wouldn't have a cake, you would have a mess, all because you had all the correct ingredients, but you didn't do it in the right order. And I think there's a lot of us as men, a lot of times we have the right process, we have everything we need, we have all the right ingredients, we just do things out of order. We want to skip certain steps because we want to get to a certain point faster, or we want to get to the end of whatever we're feeling sooner. But the truth is, everything that comes with a process has its allotted time that is due for that process. Grieving is something that we all have to come to wraps with. Why? Because grieving is something that we either already dealt with, or we're currently dealing with, or at some point or another we're going to have to deal with. We can't escape it. I have a real spot in my heart now for people who are dealing with grief, because I've experienced it on a personal level. For people who do not know, and if you're looking right now, I lost my best friend. As you can see, he's right here. I lost my best friend last year in November. It was one of the hardest times in my entire life. I actually have an podcast episode I'm going to try to pin here. You can check it out when you at your leisure. But I lost my best friend, and it was a tough time for me. I did not expect to lose him, right? As most times we don't expect to lose people that we love. We don't ever wake up in the morning and say, oh, you know what, today I expect to lose someone. That's never the case. So a lot of time most time grief comes unexpectedly. Things that happen to us unexpected a lot of times throw us for a loop. Grief is no different. I remember just how I felt like my life in that moment, in that time span, I felt like I was just in a dark space. Every day from the moment I got that phone call of letting me know that he was no longer with us, I just felt really heavy, gloomy, and just burdened, right? I just felt this heavy weight. The thing about dealing with grief, and especially is when it's unexpected, which, like I said, majority of the time it is, we don't understand that grieving is a personal experience. It's something that we have to experience, and no one else can do it for us, and no one can help us get truly through it emotionally. Grief is a personal experience, and I want to let that be known right now to every man out there. It is not something that we can hide or we can run from. It's an experience that we must have. Grief is something that comes to us. We have to deal with whether we're ready for it or we're not. Dealing with it means leaning into it. I guess I keep saying the word dealing with, and I'm not explaining when I say dealing with. When I say dealing with, I mean sitting in the emotion, feeling what you feel. Because a lot of times, especially as men, we like to suppress our emotions. We like to run from them, or put them to the side, or hide them behind our work, or dive into other activities that will remove us from actually sitting in our emotions and understanding who we are as men in that space and time of our lives. But the one thing I've come to let every man know is grieving is okay. It's okay to grieve, yo. It is a natural response to loss. If you grieve, it don't make you a punk, okay? Like, if you're sad because you lost something or someone, it's okay. It's a human experience. We as men, believe it or not, we're only human. That's all we are. We're only human. And I guess when we start to understand that and really abide in that, and take this macho facade off that we've been programmed to wear through society, and we start operating and truly understanding our human nature, we would then understand that, man, grieving is a part of our experience on this earth, and we have to experience it. We can't run from it. It's perfectly normal to grieve, y'all. It's perfectly normal. What's not normal is us suppressing our emotion, pretending like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to take you guys and give you guys a story. For example, I was 16, 17, and shout out to my man, Mr. Jefferson. He's like a pops to me. Shout out to my man, my brothers. The Jeffersons, they had given me a dog. Shout out to my dog, Oreo. He was a puppy at the time. They gave him to me, a loving puppy. I enjoyed him thoroughly. I just didn't know how to take care of a dog at the time. You know what I mean? I was learning as I was taking care of him and just growing together. And my mother had told me many moons ago she didn't want me to get no dog and bring no dog in the house. But you guys know, I didn't want to hear none of that. So I said, Ma, I got a dog. I just brought the dog home one day and, I began to take care of it. Long story short, one day I'm on the phone, right? I'm on the house phone, the cordless house phone. We're going back now. I'm sitting on the house phone. I have it stuck to my ear like this, and I'm cleaning my jewelry. And my mom says, boy, you had the dog in the house all day. Let him outside. Now, in that moment in time, I didn't really want to be responsible for the dog. I didn't want to watch him right then. I was in the middle of cleaning my jewelry, on the phone talking to some girl and preparing to get myself out of the house. She was right. And I like, you know what, Mom? Let me just put the dog outside for a little while. Now, I knew that there was a hole somewhere in the fence. I just didn't know where he was getting out at. So I put Oreo in the back and he's playing and then he's having a good time in the backyard. I go back to the front to doing what I was doing. As I'm cleaning the jewelry and I'm on my phone, I look up and Oreo runs out of the backyard. He makes his way out of under the fence and he's running around the front yard going crazy, just flying, going nuts, just running. I'm yelling at him, Oreo, get your behind back over here. Get back in the yard. Now I'm on the phone and I'm not really trying to chase after him. Like, I'm just saying, hey, get your behind over here and get back in the yard. Now I put my head down, go back to looking at the jury, and as I'm looking up, I look up and the dog is running towards the main street, which is called Great Neck, which is the main road. And I look up, I yell, Oreo, get back here. And the dog looks up. When he looks up, the car comes by, boom, hits him, knocks his head off, right? Sorry, a little graphic story, I know. So I witnessed that. I got off the phone, I ran. Now, the person who did the hit tried to run, and they did. They didn't try to run, they got away. They sped off and they got away. So all my people that was at the house with me came outside, and I was just, like, I was a little distraught. I was like, oh, man. Like, see, let me not lie. I was mad at my mother initially. See, Ma, I told you this dog didn't listen. If I would have left him in the house, this wouldn't have happened. They didn't want to take ownership. They didn't want to take responsibility for it, as I said earlier. But what I didn't do was that evening, shout out to my girlfriend at the time, Marlene. She was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm straight. Now, a part of me was really hurt, right? That was my dog, my little puppy that I had. At that time, I had it for about a year. And, you grow together. Me and that puppy began to grow together, and we had a great relationship. And then one day, that situation happened and he was no longer with us. Instead of me dealing with and really grieving the puppy, I decided to put on that macho vibrato, that real, oh, I'm all right, I'm good, I'm straight, I ain't worried about that dog. I decided to put that on outside, but internally I was truly messed up. But on the outside, I told everybody I was good. Now, I came home after everything happened that day. I came home and was laying down. The next day, I went about my business and I came back in the house. And when I came back in the house, I did not realize that my dog wasn't going to come like running up to me when I came to my room. When I opened the door and realized that he wasn't there, I broke. I cried uncontrollably. Like, I lost it. Everything that I was feeling, I just got overwhelmed with emotion and everything just began to pour out. And I just began to cry and cry and cry and cry. But the truth of the matter is the only reason I was really broke down like that and I had that emotional breakdown was because I did not take the time to grieve the way I was supposed to. And there's so many men who are lashing out, who are becoming violent towards people they love, who are simply just not becoming emotionally available to their families because they didn't take the time to grieve after a traumatic loss in their life. You would say, what kind of traumatic loss other than job? Other than what kind of traumatic loss could there be that would throw you into a grieving spell other than death? Now, there are a few. For example, a job, right? Believe it or not, there are a lot of people, a lot of men who find their identity in what they do. They find their identity in what they do and what they provide. So once that's all over with, i.e. retirement, being fired, or a new phase of life, they find themselves in a depressed state where they're grieving that position. They're grieving that job or that situation that they was in because it was a loss. Think about it. If you wake up for the last 10 to 15 years doing the same thing, going to the same building and seeing the same people, and then all of a sudden that's over with, it's going to be an adjustment. If you like the people and you like the environment that you was in, you're gonna have a little sense of disconnect. You're gonna find yourself grieving that situation. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's been times where I've grieved jobs that I've had myself. I was at a job for almost a year and change, came to work one day, and out of nowhere, I was just no longer needed. I definitely had to grieve that because it was unexpected, number one. It hurt because that's how I was feeding my family and providing for my family that was growing at the time. I had to literally grieve that. It was something that was unpleasant. It was traumatic. It hurt. And I had no answer for it. I could have sat there and pretended like, oh, I'm good. This don't bother me. But the truth of the matter is, it's only a matter of time before my bomb exploded, before my emotional bomb exploded and hurt people around me. Because that's all that happens once we suppress our anger and our emotions. The suppression of emotions leads to long-term issues for us men. Health issues, relationship issues, long-term. See, what we don't realize is dis-ease means dis-ease, right? We're no longer at rest, at ease. There's something causing us to not work at our true potential. And the suppressions of our emotions will cause us to hurt ourselves each and every time. And the longer we do it, the longer the results of our pain and our trauma will continue to last. Facts. We cannot escape it. Your trauma and those things is not something that you can just run from and think, oh my God, you know what? I can get away from this. Let me debunk something right now. Let me debunk this myth, because this myth is what's killing so many of us men, literally and physically. Literally and figuratively. Men being vulnerable isn't a sign of weakness. When you're crying and you're being vulnerable about the emotions you feel at the current time and you're actually inside of that emotion, it's not a sign of weakness. So I want to kill that noise right now, y'all. You dealing with your emotions and feeling them, expressing them, whether it be crying, yelling, screaming, doing whatever you need to do with that emotion at that point in time, whatever that takes for you to get through it. If that's the case, that is nowhere near soft. Actually, is a sign of strength, because it shows to the world that you're not here to make someone else see you and feel a certain kind of way. You're here for yourself. You're showing up for you. Anytime you say, you know what, I'm in this emotion and I feel sad right now, and this sad feeling causes me to cry, and I'm going to cry in this moment, that is not a sign of you being weak, but it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of you understanding that you need to do what you need to do for you to get through the moment that you're currently in, regardless about what anyone else has to say, think, or do about you. We have to stop being so much concerned about what someone else says, thinks, and feels about us more than we say, think, and feel about our own selves. Because that's the reason why it's so hard for us to even grieve. We're so concerned and worried about what someone else might say, think, or do about us or to us. But the truth of the matter is, I've learned so much about my release and me actually leaning into my emotions through this grieving process of me losing my best friend, that I can understand now truly how important it is for us to make sure that we go through our grieving process. Because I'm telling you, if we do not, we are literally ticking time bombs and just waiting to destruct the people and places and things around us. In grieving, right? One thing I've learned is that everything comes with phases and levels, right? So before this time of me losing my best friend, before this moment, I had not really had to deal with grief in this capacity. So before this, I lost my grandmother, and before that, I had not really lost anyone in my life, right? So I've lost different people who weren't really close to me, and it caused me some trauma, but it really didn't not come close to home and really impact me like my grandmother did. And at the time my grandmother passed away, I wasn't a father yet. I don't know, I wasn't even a husband yet. Me and my now wife, was my then girlfriend, was still dating. And you guys know, anybody who's married know now that things change when you say I do. So the way I could have ran off and just dealt with myself and my emotions in that time and space of being a quote unquote single man where we were just dating, I didn't have that same liberty and leeway in this season of my life. And this is what I want to express to a lot of you men in this episode, is that understanding that grieving as a man by yourself is a lot different than grieving as a husband and a father with a family. I had to learn that firsthand. And one of the biggest things I had to learn in the space of me grieving and dealing with death and loss as a husband and a father is that I am not the only one that's dealing with the pain. I'm not the only one that's dealing with sorrow in that time, because fellas, let's be real. The people that we love and love us, they love us dearly, right? When we feel something, they feel it. Believe it or not, husbands, fathers, when you feel pain, your wife and your children know about it. Oh yeah, they feel it. They might not understand it, but they can feel it. And the most important thing we can do as husbands, fathers, and leaders in the time of grief when we're going through it is communicate. Now, I know that probably sounds like one of the hardest things to do in the space of grieving. But if you can't communicate while you're in a space of grieving, communicate that. Because communication is the key to every relationship staying strong, even in tough times. And even if that communication is simply, yo, babe, I'm not in the space right now to be able to express myself verbally. I just need some time. I need some time to process my thoughts. I need some time alone. If even if that's all you can express that. Because I think that a lot of times relationships go into divide in seasons of grief only because one party doesn't understand how the other party is dealing with. And this is why, going back to a previous episodes, when the episode about choosing her is so important. This is why I did that episode, because in order to really get through something with someone, you're going to have to really understand and be with that person through thick and thin, ups and downs, right? Grieving the loss of someone is something that you have to get through with someone if you're in a relationship. If you don't communicate, that person who is with you does not understand or know how to handle you and treat you in the time of your grieving. See, I learned that lesson multiple times this past couple of years. Once again, in another episode, you can go back and check it. I had an incident where I shot my neighbor's dog. I'm not going to go into the details. If you want the details of that, go back to the podcast episode. I'll probably link it somewhere over here, whatever. But I had to shoot and kill a dog because of the individual my wife perceived me to be all the years, the man that I've always showed her I was. She didn't think that I needed any kind of love, sympathy, or anything in that moment, in that time, because she was like, "For what? You didn't seem like you needed it. You don't need no love. It was just a dog." But the truth of the matter was, I needed some emotional empathy and sympathy as well, because I had just taken a life of an animal, regardless if it was an animal or not. I just took a life. And in that space, I felt that I needed some kind of love and compassion from my spouse. But because I did not verbalize that, I did not communicate that with her, she just thought to herself, "Oh, it's another day, he's fine." And here I am over in the corner feeling neglected, left out, and abandoned. But the truth of the matter is, she didn't even know what I needed in that space, because I never verbalized it to her. I never communicated to her, "Hey, babe, guess what? As tough as a tough guy as you think I may be, I'm still a little boy on the inside, and that bothered me. There's still some parts of that situation that bother me as an individual, and I would like some comfort. I would like some love and some communication between me and you right now, just to help me get through this." But I didn't articulate that. I didn't put that into words for her to understand. And because of that, I was in my own headspace, feeling neglected, left out, and abandoned, and all these things. But the truth of the matter was, she just did not know it was necessary. And that happens a lot of times in relationships. We have to do our job, our best job in communicating, even if we cannot communicate, right? We have to do our best to say, even if we cannot communicate, you'll communicate that. Communicate that you're not in a space to communicate. Let them know you might not have the words right now. You might not have the capacity to even deal with them right now in the space that they need you to deal with them. Let them know that. And don't let them know in a negative way. Don't let it build up to the point where you're just blasting out and say, "I don't have time and capacity to deal with y'all right now." No, don't let it get to that point. Let them know early. Listen, dad is not okay. Your husband is not okay right now. I'm hurting. I don't know what to do right now myself, or I don't know what to do for you right now. Just give me some time. I need some time to deal with my emotions, to process what's going on, and then I'll be able to handle my responsibilities and get back to doing the things you need me to do for you. But right now, on this point in time, I don't have it. And a great family, right? A great family in a great household will understand that, because they'll understand that you're not okay, right? They'll understand that you're in a space that you haven't been in before, and you don't quite know how to deal with it, right? So one of the best ways to deal with grief is through open and honest communication. Like I said, if you can't express it, you can't express it. But if you do have the capacity, right, and you do have the ability to express yourself and let your family know and let them in to where they're able to help you, then yes, an honest communication is the key. Because if you're not in a space of communicating, or if you're not in a space of being okay and you're trying to pretend, you're only going to cause yourself more harm and the people around you. Letting your family know where you are mentally and emotionally is key. For instance, when my best friend passed, my wife, she did a phenomenal job of just keeping me secluded and taking me to different places where I can just be to myself and have moments. I remember her taking me to a beautiful, beautiful hotel and just allowing me to sit by the pool for a few hours and just sit there. And she took my children and they went off and they played and had a phenomenal day while I just sat on the beach and just had a moment, had time to myself to process the thought, to grieve, and just to be in the feelings and the emotions that were around me in that time of my life. And let me tell y'all, I'm extremely grateful because she understood mentally and emotionally. I just wasn't there. I was trying to get myself there. I was trying to pull myself back, but it was so hard because I had never dealt with such pain in my life in such a way that was so abrupt. Because like I said before, my grandmother, her passing, it was almost like it was a slow journey that we all seen was coming at certain points due to the situation that put her in the hospital in the first place. We always kind of around the aware that it was only but so much time that we had with her. But my best friend, it was very subtle and very out of the blue. It threw me for a major loop. And one thing I realized, it was one thing dealing with grief as a regular man, right, just a regular boyfriend, but it was something totally different dealing with grief and grieving as a husband and father. See, my kids and my wife, they had to see me in a way in which they have never seen me before. I remember my daughter just looking at me, sitting in a chair, and I don't think she knew I knew that she was looking at me, but she was looking at me. She had an iPad in her hand, and she was just looking at me, and she had this look of she just wanted to help, right? She just wanted to come over and do whatever it took to make her daddy smile. And I remember her coming over and just making conversation. You guys know when kids don't have anything to talk about, they'll just start making random things up or stating the obvious or saying things just to create conversation between you two. And I remember her just trying to do things to make me smile, to uplift my spirits. And my son, who literally is in his own world most of the times, I felt his energy. I felt him around me. I felt him just wanting to embrace me. And even times where I was sitting on the couch, he just ran up to me and just hugged me. And like my son's not really like the emotional one, right? Like he's not really one for all the hugs and kisses. But in that time, I felt him embrace me because I truly felt that he felt there was something wrong with his dad. So to the point, guys, we have to make sure that we're letting our families know where we are mentally and emotionally so they can help us in that space, whether it be give us time to ourselves, love on us, try to help us get through certain things, talk to us, right? Whatever it may be, we have to be able to give them a space to help us. And that space helping us could literally be just giving us time alone, right? And I want to give this special message to the women in our lives that might not quite understand this, is that, ladies, if he needs time in this moment, it's not that he's angry with you. If he needs time in this moment of grieving and trying to figure things out, it has nothing to do with you and your relationship with him. If he gets quiet, if he begins to just shut down, he's trying to figure things out. It's not a shot against you. It's not a shot against your relationship. He's just trying to figure his own process out. Because one thing I've learned is that we don't know what we don't know. And if we haven't been through it before, we don't know how to get through it. It may sound real juvenile, but it's really important for us to understand that. We don't know what we don't know. And if we haven't gotten through, we don't know what it takes to get through it until we what? Get through it. With any process in life, especially our grief. If you have a man in your life and he has never experienced grief and all of a sudden he loses someone in his life, that process of him trying to figure it out as your man is a new process to him. He might know how to deal with grief as himself by himself, but he's never had to deal with it as being who he is to you. See, what we don't understand as men is that a lot of times our relationship to people around us are affected by what we're going through in our lives. Our wives are affected by what goes on in our lives. Our moms are affected by what goes on in our lives. Our children's lives are affected by what goes on in our lives. So we affect everyone around us. So if that is the case, we have to make sure that when we're going through our processes, they understand our process, or they understand that we are in a process that we are trying to figure out. See, these are some of the things that I wish I was explained to early in my relationship, because my wife probably wouldn't have to take some of the bumps and bruises that she went through dealing with me, and me not understanding my own processes. But thank God for her grace. Thank God for her connection to God, because her patience, her diligence to this relationship is literally what's keeping us together. And I am so appreciative because she has not stifled none of my processes. And I want that to be a very, very point, a powerful point right now in this podcast. If you love the person you went, you don't want to stifle any of their processes, because their process is what's going to get them to the next level of their lives, where you really want them at if your individual is growing. So we as husbands, trust me when I tell y'all, what you don't want to do is stifle your woman's growth in any capacity, right? You don't want to stifle any of her processes, because later on in life, you'll regret it yourself. We want to grow together. We have to go through our processes together, meaning inside of the times where we have to grieve, we're grieving together. We're not doing it alone, especially as husbands and fathers. Now, let's talk about, don't assume that your family understands or knows what you're dealing with. That is a major issue. And I want to say that again. Do not assume that your family and friends and loved ones understand and know what you're going through or what you're dealing with or how you deal with it. Assume that they do not understand and they do not know. Have that assumption. Do not assume that they know, because it's only going to lead to frustration and heartache down the road for you and the other parties involved. Make sure that you do not assume that they understand or know what you're going through or the process that you are currently dealing with, because the truth of the matter is they don't. You making that assumption is literally making a big mistake, because let's say they don't, right? They don't know. You assuming that they do, it puts you now in a frustrated space. Oh, I know you know what I'm dealing with right now. How could you do that XYZ to me? How could you say XYZ to me when you know I'm dealing with XYZ? The truth of the matter is they didn't know you was dealing with it, because we as men, we hide a lot of times things we deal with. We suppress our emotions to people, the way the people around us have no clue that we're even in that emotion, right? If and when someone mistakes our emotions or mistakes the place that we're currently in, we get upset, we get frustrated, we get annoyed. But the truth of the matter is we've never expressed to them. We just assume that they either know or they should know based upon the relationship with us, where we are mentally and emotionally inside of any one of our processes. And to be honest, that is messed up. It's truly messed up to the people around you if you assume that they know what you're going through, because the truth is they don't. And you making that assumption is putting them at a disadvantage, as well as yourself, because all you're setting yourself up for is aggravation and frustration on top of whatever you're dealing with. So do yourself a favor, communicate to your family. Like I said, if you can't communicate that you can't communicate, but always have some kind of line of communication open in the process of when you're grieving, because truthfully, they're going through it with you. They're not against you. It's another powerful point that I want to point out. Fellas, understand that inside of your processes, your family, your wife, and your children are not against you. They are truly with you. So don't treat them as if though they're against you. Now, I'm telling you from experience, for some unknown reason, we get this thing where as men, when we're dealing with something, or we're going through something, that we feel like it's us against the world. But the truth of the matter is, it's still you and your family against whatever you're dealing with. It never switched. It never went to just you all of a sudden because you're dealing with it. No, till death do you part. Everything that you deal with, so will they. So each one of your process, you have to understand and make them understand, listen, I'm in a certain place. I need your help to get through this. I can't get through this without you. Now, whatever that help that you may need, be able to articulate that. And if you can't articulate that, find another way to express yourself that gives them some kind of insight to where you are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, I am a big component on self-care, guys, right? A big component on it. I speak about self-care in a lot of my content because we as men, we have to do it, right? And I don't mean going and getting our nails done, going sitting someplace, our hair cut. That's all fine and well. That's all fine and well. But what I am talking about is that space of taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Because if any of the time you need that stored up energy of meditation and prayer, right? When the people say stay prayed up, they're talking about in times where grief strikes out of nowhere. Because it's not really easy to go into a meditational space in a prayer mindset when grief and loss just slapped you in the face. It's not easy. you gotta sort of kind of lean on your reserve of prayer, right? You gotta start drawing on that inner peace that you've been building up, because listen, it's rough. Grieving is tough. It's a hard emotional process, and you need your self-care to be at tip-top shape, especially in the time of you grieving. You have to make sure that you're doing things that healthy that are healthy coping mechanisms, right? Healthy coping mechanisms. You have to be doing things that are healthy for your mental, your spiritual, as well as your physical, right? I say that you should be doing things to stimulate your mind, your body, and spirit, like exercise, meditating, journaling, spending time with loved ones, going out and doing new activities, learning a new thing, going out and trying a new adventure, getting out of your mind and getting back into your body, getting yourself to be able to deal with and understand what you're dealing with as a whole, right? This is why self-care is so important on a day-to-day basis, because we don't know when disaster is going to strike. And when it does, you want to be at a somewhat space where you can lean on what you've been doing daily, right? Your daily activities to help you get through mentally, your workouts, your journaling, your prayer, your meditations. All of those things are designed and dedicated to help you get through these tough times that have you really hung up emotionally and mentally and spiritually as a man. Like I said, the healthy coping mechanisms are things that help you physically, mentally, and spiritually, and put you into a positive space rather than a negative one. What you do want to do is avoid the negative coping mechanisms, i.e., smoking, drinking, uh, uh, being promiscuous, running the streets, partying, and doing things that are detrimental to your physical, right? Drugs, alcohol, all those vices, those are things that are literally negative coping mechanisms. So whenever that you find yourself in grieving times or you're in grief, do not run to the alcohol bottle. As a matter of fact, push it away. I have a friend of mine, shout out to my man Chris McBride, a business partner of mine and a good friend. He was telling me, and he was telling a story on the podcast about when he was dealing with the grief of losing his family, and the situation that he was in. He had to leave weed alone. He had to put those device that he went to on an everyday basis. He had to put those aside, and he had to really just cope and deal with the things at a holistic and a holistic and a natural atmosphere where his mind wasn't clouded, his judgment wasn't clouded based upon his vices. And I think that we as men have to make sure that we do not run to our negative coping mechanisms in the time of grief, because what happens is if you run to that in the time of grief, that is a space you will try to stay in. See, grieving and grief is not a space for us to reside in. Yes, we have to lean into it. Yes, we have to deal with the emotions. Yes, we have to process it, but we do not and we cannot stay in that space of grieving, because that's when depression becomes to arrive. And let me tell y'all something: grief and depression can literally be twins, and you won't even know the difference. Because what happens is you'll find yourself in a space of grief for too long, right? To where now everything around you has this dark and gloom effect to it. Everything around you has this dark cloud over it, and you can't find your way out. But what we have to do as men have to make sure that inside of the process of us grieving, we understand that this is a space that we are currently at, but it's not some place that we can reside. Grieving is for a time and a place, but once that time and place has ran out, that is, well, we have to move on. We cannot stay in that state of grieving. Now, I'm coming down to the last part of this podcast and the ending of this. And what I want to let you guys know is that grief is something that we all have to deal with, and we all have our own separate ways of dealing with it. But one thing I want to admonish and I want to push you guys to do is deal with your grief. Don't run from it, right? If you're sad, be sad. If you're upset, be upset. See, the good book says, be angry, but sin not, right? Don't do things going to hurt you, but it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be hurt. What's not okay is having those emotions and not feeling them, not wanting to deal with them for whatever reason. That's what's not okay. We have to make sure that we as men have to ground ourselves through prayer, meditation, and spiritual work on a day-to-day basis, because we don't know when trauma or trial situations are going to strike. We don't know. We don't know. And we can't be prepared for things that we don't know. But one thing we can do is make sure that on a day-to-day basis, we're doing what we need to do to protect our mental and our spiritual and our physical being. If we're doing it on a day-to-day basis, when trials and tribulations do come, when circumstances and situations do arrive, we'll be able to deal with them accordingly and get through them at its right pace and passage, at its right pace and time for our own lives and our specific needs. I can't grieve in the way that you grieve. You grieving the way I grieve won't help you. We all have our own specific ways of dealing with loss, death, relationship loss. We all have our own specific ways of dealing with those things. But the one thing I want to tell you guys as men, as my closing thoughts tonight, is make sure that you understand your own process of grief, deal with it like a man, don't run from it, deal with it head on, feel the emotions, understand why you're feeling the emotions, process those emotions, and move on as a leader. And throughout your process of grieving, understand that your responsibilities and obligations didn't subside because you have a trauma or you have you're dealing with loss. You're still a father. You're still a husband. You still have all your responsibilities. And your responsibility to number one is to yourself and to your family. Understand that, what you're going through, they're going through it with you. They're not apart from you while you're going through things. Understand that they feel what you feel. They might not understand it, but they feel it. And with that understanding, you have to know that you're a leader at all times. You're a leader in good seasons. You're a leader in bad seasons. You're a leader in a time of happiness. You're a leader in a time of sorrow. Your leadership does not resolve to the situation or circumstance that you are dealing with. Understand that. You've taken on this obligation of being a father, a husband, a leader. You've taken on the due diligence. You've taken on this job, this responsibility, this great task, and I commend you for it. But understand, inside of you wearing that hat of a husband, father, and a leader, you have to go through the things as a man would. And this is why it's important for us to make sure that we find ourselves as men before we find our titles as husbands and leaders and fathers, because other lives depend on us regardless of what we're going through. And that is a tremendous responsibility. It is a tremendous weight that I know that not only are you made for, but you were built for. God put this weight on our shoulders as men because He know we had the broad shoulders and strong back to bear it. Understand that whatever you're going through right now, whether you're just now coming out of your grieving situation, you're in your grieving situation, or you're about to step into a season of grief, understand that you are a man and you have the power and the capability to deal with this distress and everything that comes with grief, but you are built for it. And what you have to understand is that the people around you, people who will love you, only thing they need you to do is continue to be who you are to them in the way possible that you can be it to them while you're grieving in the midst of your seasons of dealing with grief. So my final thoughts, like I said, guys, is to understand that grieving is natural, y'all. Understand this. Don't run from it. Lean into it. Embrace it. If you need help with it, reach out to me. Reach out. I will help you. If I don't have the help, I have someone on my team. I have a phenomenal group of men that I'm a network of. I have coaches, therapists, all kind of individuals, professional individuals that are here to help you get through the situation that you're going through. You do not have to go through this alone, King. I promise you, you do not have to go through these things alone. It's only your brain that's telling you that you have to go through these things alone. You're not going through it alone. You're not the only one dealing with it. I can promise you that. I can promise you, you're not the only one that is dealing with this grief right now. So with that being said, reach out to your boy. I am on Instagram. I am here. You can reach out to me in the comments. If you want to keep it discreet, go over to Instagram, rjd.imperfectgentleman. Hit me in the DM and let's talk about it. Because one thing I don't want you to do, I don't want you walking around here like a ticking time bomb, just waiting to explode and hurt and the people that you love and you care about dearly. That is what I don't want. And I can promise you, if you don't deal with the grief and deal with your grieving process, you will at some point hurt the people that you love because you will explode on them. It's not an if, it's a when if you don't deal with your grief. Now, I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to inform you. And to everyone that has heard this podcast episode, I ask you to continue to share this content. Share this with a man that you may know that's going through a tough season right now. Share this podcast with an individual that you think is that you may know is dealing with a loss right now, is grieving of anything, any sort, because there is nothing too great or too small when we're talking about grieving. It might seem minute to some, but to the person that's dealing with it, it could seem like the world. And we don't want to minimize someone else's pain. Do your best if you do know somebody that's in your circle, or you do know a young man or a young father somewhere, a husband that's dealing with grief or having a hard time dealing with it, share this episode with them, right? Share this information with them, because the truth of the matter is we all are going to need someone at some point in this journey of our lives. And I think that if we do more of helping others when it's our time for us to need the help, we'll have no problem receiving it, because people will be more than willing to give the same help that we've given out when it wasn't our turn. So I hope that I said something in this episode that will inspire and give some kind of insight on dealing with grief and understanding your position as a husband and father and a leader in the midst of you grieving. Because truthfully, it's a tough spot to be in. It's a tough season to go through in life. But now, as myself in the space of my life of coming out of the season of grieving, I can look back and hindsight and say that everything that I went through in that space has helped me to be a stronger individual mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And as well as my relationship with God has gotten stronger, because I had to lean and depend on him, right? So I truly understand that God gives us tests and trials for us to get closer and draw nigh to him, because the truth of the matter, if life was peaches and cream, would we even reach out to God, right? Would we even would we even take the time to appreciate him? So I think that God gives us tests and trials and tribulations for us to understand that he loves us, and he is the only one that can really get us through anything that we're going through. So I've learned to lean and trust in God a little bit more and a little bit stronger this year, because of what I've been through and the things that I've seen. And because of that, my passion and my drive for helping men is even stronger, and my fire is even hotter. So I just want to say, you guys, that understand that you are the gift. You are the gift. Nothing that you provide is more important than you yourself. You are the gift. Understand that. And understand that we all have our own processes, right? The process that you have is different than my process. But what you have to understand is that your process includes other people. It's not just you anymore, right? It's not just you dealing with the grief. It's not just you dealing with the grieving. It's your children, your wife, and the people around you, right? If you have a business, it's your employees. If you're working, it's your coworkers and your employer. Everyone around you is going to feel you in a space that you are dealing with grief or grieving. Understand that going through grief is a natural experience, and it doesn't make you less of a man when you embrace the negative feelings and the negative emotions that cause you to be vulnerable, that cause you to cry and to be transparent about where you are in that current moment emotionally. There is nothing wrong with that. And anyone that has anything to say about that, tell them to holler at me, because I got more than enough smoke for anyone that's trying to belittle or make a man feel less than a man because he's embraced his emotions, or he's understand that he has to go through and deal with whatever he's feeling with as a man, and not run like an immature little boy. So my final words, again, I feel like a preacher right now. I feel like mad different closings. This is my last close. I want to let you guys know that grieving is a part of life. It's a normal process. It is something that we all have to go through at some point, and it's natural to feel it. It is a natural experience for humans to have. So if you're not having the experience, or if you have not had the experience, at some point you will. And at that point, this video will make more sense to you. So with that being said, my good people, I went over time wise, but I want to come down to having the words to my kids. And this week, I want to say to Josiah and Imani, I want to talk to you both. Josiah and Imani, understand that I'm not going to always be here. I'm not going to always be on this earth to watch over you, to lead you and to guide you. At some point in time, the good Lord upstairs is going to take me away from you guys. And you're going to have to be able to stand on your feet and do the things that I've taught you throughout your entire existence. And also lean and depend on the God, the Father, that I've pointed you guys in the direction to your whole entire lives. But one thing I want to tell you in this episode is that whatever your process of grieving is, lean into it, deal with it, be a man, be a woman about it, and understand that I'm going to do my best to prepare you for each and everything that you come up to in life. But there are some things that I just won't be able to prepare you for. And then when those times do come, you're going to have to lean and depend on God the Father and the lessons that I have left with you on this earth. So with that being said, Josiah and Imani, like I said, I'm not going to always be here. But the time that I do have with you, I'm going to do my best to instill everything that I can to help you be stronger, wiser, and better individuals in society and in the sight of God. So that's my word to you guys for this week. And the closing thoughts is this, guys. You are the gift. Like I said earlier, you are the gift. Protect yourself that way. Act as if though you are the gift and you're not anything that you provide, right? You yourself are the gift. So take care of yourself, right? Deal with your emotions. Understand who you are. Go through the process of grieving. Deal with it. Understand it. Because there is so much emotional and spiritual strength on the other side of your grief. You just have to get through it. You just have to get through this moment right now. So like I said before, if you are dealing with grief right now, reach out. I'm here for you. If you have dealt with it and you're still dealing with it right now and you need some help getting through it, reach out. I am here for you as well. And if you are an individual, or you are a fatherless father, or just a man who is looking to build his confidence in his masculinity and his fatherhood, also reach out to your boy. Go over to Instagram and DM me or get on my calendar, and we will set up a conversation that we can sit down and see if my coaching is a good fit for what you need to get through in your life right now in this stage and phase of your life. So with that being said, good people, good fathers out there, understand one more time, you are the gift, and be appreciative of the giver of that gift, which is our God and our Father. Always appreciate him for everything that you have and who you are and where you are in life. Now, you guys know, to the world, you're just a dad. That's all you are. But to your family, you are the world. Don't let that go over your head, okay? But until the next time you see me in these podcast streets and I see you, you'll be good to yourself and the ones around you. And if you can't be good to the ones around you, that's okay. Just get those people from around you. Yo, this is your boy RJD, the Imperfect Gentleman. This has been another dope episode of the Imperfect Fathers podcast. Y'all be blessed, because I will.